ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to the DTM at Zandvoort.
Hi, my name is Martin Tomczyk. We are here at the Norisring.
Welcome to Mugello. We'll enjoy the race at Brands Hatch.
Welcome to Hockenheimring.
I hope you'll have fun watching all the action at Barcelona.
To the Euro Speedway Lausitz.
Have fun at the race in Oschersleben.
I really hope that you will enjoy the race here at the Nürburgring racetrack.
And enjoy the race.
I hope you enjoy the race.
Yes, so welcome to our review of the 2008 DTM season. We're going to not only enjoy the race, we're going to enjoy their races. And it's been some 20 weeks after the checkered flag came down on last season's grand final at Hockenheim that the 19-strong starting field for 2008 was unveiled in Düsseldorf. Season's cars fell into three distinct categories. Mercedes entered 5 2007 and 4 2008 C-Class cars, while the 10 Audis comprised 4 current Audi A4s, 6 07 models and 2 06 cars. The 2008 DTM calendar featured no fewer than 11 races, more than ever before, and the number included 5 races outside Germany. The DTM season of 08 promised excitement, door-to-door racing and plenty of action. And it all started at Hockenheim, as it always does, of course, in April. On the eve of the season, Mercedes Motorsport Supremo Norbert Haug sprang a major surprise, adding a big-name new signing to his stable of drivers. It was Ralf Schumacher. I've learned one thing already. It's a completely new chapter, and it's going to be very difficult. This is motorsport at an extremely high level, because obviously conditions are the same for everyone. Driving a car like this is completely new to me, and also very complex. So my personal expectation is that I'll probably start out near the back of the field. Obviously, I'm hoping to work my way up the field as quickly as possible. Well, certainly Ralph was making the right predictions. At the opening race weekend of the season, held as always at Hockenheim, he was easily the biggest attraction for photographers and fans alike. But he was 15th on the grid, exactly as he had predicted. The first pole of 2008 was claimed by Audi's Timo Scheider ahead of Matthias Ekstrom and Mercedes racer Bruno Spengler. As ever, there was a spectacular start as they stormed around the Motordrome. Ekstrom's dream start took him past Scheider and into the lead, with Spengler settling into third place. Paul di Resta had been beaten off the line by Tom Christensen, but he was in no mood to hang around. It was neck and neck going through the Parabolica, and the young Scot emerged with his nose in front, a tribute to his superior top speed. And we can look at that start again. There they go. And also watching for Martin Tomczyk, who found a way past Bernd Schneider and closed up on the men in front of him, including Jamie Green and Oliver Jarvis. Jarvis there with the silver and yellow car. The British newcomer was going well, but certainly Green was charging hard. Tomczyk there on the charge, goes past Green. Then the first round of mandatory pit stops made little difference to the race order. Scheider and di Resta both came in on lap 14 and both benefited from precise, quick work by the mechanics. Scheider duly rejoined behind Matthias Ekstrom, who had already been in for fresh rubber on the previous lap. By contrast, di Resta sped from the pit lane exit to steal a place from fellow Merc driver Bruno Spengler. The first effects of this year's new regulations governing mandatory stops, both of which must now be completed within the second third of the race, began to make themselves felt. Bernd Schneider, who had yet to pit, held off Ekstrom for just 2 laps, and on this particular day, Audi caught up any lost time with ease. We can speculate on where di Resta might have finished had it not been for this mishap with his second tyre change, and it dropped him to 13th place. So Spengler was the best of the Mercedes drivers. Although watch this, Tomczyk there coming very fast indeed and overshooting, but he very nearly took out the rival. Naturally, the spotlight remained very much on Ralf Schumacher. He started 15th and finished 1 spot better. it had been a satisfactory debut. But here in the opening race of the season, it was a convincing Audi 1-2-3 at a circuit where previously Mercedes had done most of the winning. So the 07 champion had started 08 in grand style. It's been a massive day for me. I really made a good start and overtook Timo going into the first bend. Then I led from turn 1 through to the finish. The car was dynamite today and went really well. When you've got a car as good as that, driving is just unbelievably enjoyable. But there would certainly be no rest for Ekstrom and all the teams, because just a week later they would be heading off to Oschersleben. So the celebrations at Hockenheim didn't last very long. 2 races in 2 weeks is rare in the DTM. But Audi continued as they'd left off, and they annexed the first 4 spots on the grid. But on race day, it all started to go wrong. Tom Christensen jumping the start. It's very difficult to get these cars off the line. Christensen didn't get it right, and of course, he was penalised. He wasn't the only man in trouble, though. Bernd Schneider picked up a drive-through penalty for also jumping the start. There you see him going. However, there are no penalties for a collision 1 turn later. The unfortunate victim was Oliver Jarvis, who had started from 4th. He and Jamie Green had a coming together at the Hotel Bend, and there the young Brit goes round. The incident opened up a gap between Scheider, Tomczyk, Spengler, De Resta and the rest of the field. Ekstrom, plagued by problems with the aerodynamics, was holding up the following pack. Rockefeller in the red Audi and especially Green could easily have gone faster, but Ekstrom made sure they didn't. Christian Albers there, another import from Formula 1, ended the race in a less than satisfactory 16th after that big spin. At the end of the pit window, Ekstrom was still clinging on to 5th, courtesy of some very aggressive driving. 24 laps had passed before Green finally made his way around the 2 Audis. The race was a lonely affair for him after that. Rockefeller and Ekstrom duelled for another 3 laps before Rockefeller overtook the winner from Hockenheim. But Ekstrom had big problems with his car. After a collision between Tom Christensen and Mauro Engel, another newcomer, there was a safety car, and it lasted for 8 laps. All eyes then on leader Scheider at the restart. However, when the safety car came in, the race leader did everything right, and he left the pursuing pack in disarray. There was no attack from the rivals. Tomczyk was second and finished in front of Spengler. Ralf Schumacher stayed out of trouble and claimed 10th place. Schumacher certainly enjoyed a grandstand view of the Christensen-Engel collision. So, 2 races down, 2 wins for Audi, and Timo Scheider crossed the finish line for his first ever victory in the DTM. This time it was an Audi 1-2 with Martin Tomczyk second, but Bruno Spengler put Mercedes onto the podium with Paul Di Resta in 4th place. And Scheider was delighted. I'm overjoyed. It's taken a long time. I've been through some tough years after joining the DTM. I've had to be very patient. I've been down there in the dirt for a long time before coming to this day. I've just been patient, and it's paid off. This is the first time I've been on top of the podium, but after Hockenheim, I knew this would happen because we were very strong in Hockenheim, and same here in Oschersleben. I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's kept faith in me. And they're leading the championship after 2 rounds, Timo Scheider and Martin Tomczyk. 3 Audi drivers then at the top of the Drivers' Championship. Not exactly what Norbert Haug wanted to see. So Timo Scheider kisses the trophy and great celebrations. But of course, moving on to the next race in Italy, Audi will be carrying a 20 kilogram weight handicap. And there, the bubbly spraying. Timo Scheider, very popular man, and did a superb job here. Round 3, Mugello, the first race outside Germany. And certainly things were starting to switch back to Mercedes-Benz. Scheider, though, was on the pole in the black and silver car, but did not make a good start. In fact, he jumped it and received a drive-through penalty. Green rolled off the line and took the lead just a few yards into the race. Good start too for young Paul di Resta from Scotland in the black Mercedes. And there was plenty of action behind. You can have a look at that jump start again. Look at the car just inching forward. They're very tricky to start, these DTM cars. There's a special technique, and if you don't get it absolutely right, then you get a jump start. Ekstrom had also made a slow getaway, but look at this. Tomczyk pushed by Spengler into Mike Rockenfeller's red Audi. Green's race was going well. He opened up a comfortable gap to di Resta and Christensen after just a few laps. Then there was a gap back to Bernd Schneider and a second chasing group. Timo Scheider did what he could right at the back of the field. Matthias Lauda in the 07 orange and blue Mercedes had an impossible task made more difficult several laps before Scheider saw the gap and went for it. There he goes. Mandatory pit stops made no difference again to the leading positions. The three leaders were stationary for almost exactly identical periods of time and rejoined pretty much as they went in. Green was clear. Christensen was chasing after di Resta. And possibly Susie Stoddard held up the Great Dane for a little while. From being the hunter, Christensen became the hunted. Bernd Schneider has started to close up on him. And here they are, both making their pit stops. And look at that. Christensen just out before the Mercedes-Benz. But this time it was the Dane who got a helping hand. Timo Scheider, who had only stopped once, moved over politely for his fellow Audi driver, but gave Bernd Schneider a harder time. That settled the top four places in an orderly, evenly spaced manner. Green, di Resta, Christensen and Schneider, and they headed towards the finish. Scheider there pushing hard and moving past Gary Paffett. The V8 cars sounding absolutely magnificent. Yet again, the DTM had served up another great race. It proved to be a thoroughly satisfying day for Green, a third DTM race win for the Leicestershire man, and proved that his victories of 2007 were no fluke. Audi's early dominance in the championship had come to an end. Here we had a Mercedes 1-2.
The first stint was key, and I was able to be very quick and open up a good margin and set the fastest lap of the race. So I think that was very important. I have to thank everybody at Mercedes-Benz for have worked so hard in the last 2 weeks to bring us back into winning ways, and I think we all should be proud of what we've achieved today.
And there are the points. Scheider still on top of the pile, but Jamie Green second, just a point behind. Then Ekstrom and then Paul di Resta. His first year in a current car and having an excellent season. Surely a win would soon come his way too. Race 4 then at the Lausitzring. And the man of the moment was certainly Paul di Resta. Qualifying for the 4th race of the season, the young Scot took his maiden pole position in a flash of flame. At the start, championship leader Timo Scheider held on to 3rd place behind De Resta and Spengler. Martin Tomczyk fast started from 6th, but had to surrender 4th place to Ekstrom. And the curbing took a bashing too. Christensen's white Audi A4 had clearly already made contact with something, and that was just the start of his troubles. The Dane's race was effectively over just a few yards from the start. And there he is, disappearing in a cloud of smoke. Now we see the reason for the Dane spin. Coming together with teammate Alexandra Pamat set the event in motion. Christensen bravely battled on, but it only served to prolong the agony. And Marcus Winkelhock's race lasted a mere 3 laps. Suddenly, and with the right rear tyre and wheel in shreds, his Audi A4 was careering down the home straight out of control and into the barrier. The crash caused by that puncture. The restart after the safety car phase had no effect on the race order. De Resta maintained his clear lead, followed by Spengler, Scheider and Ekstrom, with Tomczyk and Green behind them. On this occasion, pit stops were decisive. Spengler came in at the same time as and Scheider, and the Audi crew were faster. Spengler slipped to 3rd place. And there is Timo Scheider's partner. She's delighted. Spengler's 2nd stop was another drawn-out affair. The only consolation, he surrendered 5th place to a fellow Mercedes driver, Jamie Green. There, De Resta in the lead. Scheider was much too quick for both Ekstrom and Tomczyk. And what about the girls, Catherine Legg and Susie Stoddart? Well, they were having a bit of a moment, a bit of handbag bashing going on between those two. Stoddart later retired with faulty brakes. No problems, though, for Paul De Resta as he reeled off the laps. And he went to the checkered flag with a 6-second victory margin. After 4 podium finishes, the still young DTM racer made it to the top step of the podium.
It's difficult to explain, you know, we've waited a long time for this, been on the podium 4 times, not been able to quite get on the top step, but you know, this weekend has been great, the car has been perfect, and you know, the team have worked so hard in giving me the best opportunity.
So there are the points, 4 races down, the first 2 to Audi, the second 2 to Mercedes-Benz. But the man that was celebrating most was certainly Paul De Resta. So, as we headed off to the famous Norisring, this street race, which would be held in front of a massive crowd yet again, it was everything to play for. The championship was wide open. Yes, Mercedes were in good shape after qualifying. Bruno Spengler and Jamie Green were on the front row, with Scheider and De Resta on row 2, and Ekstrom down in a lowly 8th place. Green and Tom Christensen, the 2 white cars, were quick to react at the start. But Scheider's start was a catastrophe. He slipped back to 8th place round the Grundig hairpin, and Green took the lead from Spengler. Spengler defended his position from De Resta and Tomczyk. Unfortunately, everyone made it. There, Christensen goes down the inside of Tomczyk. The Audis were certainly putting on a good show. A little further down the track, Scheider overtook Tomczyk. Bernd Schneider also sensed an opportunity too. Schneider found a way through a little later, but his car took a bit of a battering along the way. Look at that! And there is Dr. Ulrich. We're not sure what he thought about all that. Ultimately, Tomczyk found himself in a retirement situation. He parked it into the crash barriers. Yet more bad luck for Tomczyk, whose championship ambitions were evaporating. Green pulled away smoothly in the lead. A spin there from De Resta. That dropped him down the order. That allowed Christensen, Ekstrom, Scheider and Paffett to go past. We see the spin again. Back at the same point on the circuit, Ekstrom took up another position. And look at that wing mirror going flying. The two Audis absolutely trading paint. And look at the fans. I'm not sure which side they're on. 6 laps later, Timo Scheider made his way past Christensen, although he claimed 4th place during the first round of mandatory stops. Scheider came in for his tyres 2 laps later after Christensen and made the most of a nice clear track in front of him. After his dreadful start, the tide was now turning in favour of the championship leader. Jamie Green with problems, taking the fuel can with him as he went. Didn't seem to distract the young British driver, and finally the can went scuttering off down the racetrack. You can see it again. Meanwhile, Ralf Schumacher, he had made his way up to 9th place in the black car and appeared set for his best position until this misdemeanor, a spin at the Grundig corner. He later retired with faulty brakes. Out in front, vital championship points were at stake. Ekstrom in 3rd place, locked up at the final turn. Scheider sped past and crossed the finish line behind only Green and Spengler. Ekstrom lately flatly denied he had been following team orders. And there, a checkered flag. So, Jamie Green, a winner again. Bruno Spengler 2nd, Timo Scheider in 3rd place. And going through the field, Matthias Ekstrom, but it was Green who celebrated another victory, 2 in a row.
You know, in the past I struggled a little bit with the starts, and I struggled also here in 06 to win the race, so it's nice to put all those questions to bed and show that I can do the job, and that's especially rewarding to win here under such high pressure and such challenging conditions.
However, it was not enough to send Green to the top of the points chart. Timo Scheider was still hanging on with 32 points. Jamie Green had 31, and Paul de Resta, he was in the hunt as well. He had 26. And there is Norbert Haug with a very special pair of spectacles. Off then to the race around the dunes of Holland. Yes, Zandvoort. Of course, local hero here is Christian Albers, but he was really destined for nothing more than a supporting role, running in his 2-year-old car. Wasn't a great qualifying for Mercedes. Ekstrom, Scheider, Christensen, they took the 3 top spots. Jamie Green, who started in 4th, was immediately passed by Martin Tomczyk. Green's teammates Bruno Spengler and Paul de Resta also sped fast. A disaster for the best placed Mercedes man in the championship. And when Tomczyk got the better of Spengler, 4 Audis were leading 3 Mercedes-Benz. Martin Tomczyk was the big winner at the start, climbing from 6th to 4th. Ekstrom and Scheider rapidly pulled clear of Christensen and Tomczyk. All of this under the watchful gaze of Christian Albers, already parked at trackside. He was just a spectator. Albers has slid off on lap 2. A bit of disappointment for the 48,000 crowd. And there he goes, into the barrier. The longer the race went on, the bigger the gap between Spengler, Green and De Resta and the four 2008 Audi A4s. It was clear from an early stage the Mercedes were not in contention here in Holland. Audi also proved unbeatable in the pits. Matthias Ekstrom's second stop was timed at an incredible 3.3 seconds, whereas De Resta's second stop, it cost the team 10.9 seconds due to cross-threading on the right rear wheel nut. The Scot slipped from 5th to 7th. Back on track, Mike Rockenfeller was having a big battle with Bernd Schneider in the silver Mercedes. But finally, in the older car, he had to concede defeat. And Marcus Winkelhock was also having a very good run. And there they go, around the sweeps of this fabulous Dutch circuit. And Dr. Ulrich liked it too. But what about championship leader Timo Scheider? He never had the opportunity to overtake Matthias Ekstrom, but he had a very good look at the back of the Swede's car. Overall, it was another successful weekend for Audi. Ekstrom, Scheider, Christensen and Tomczyk repeated the earlier 1, 2, 3, 4 triumph. The possibility of another clean sweep was already in the air after qualifying. And there, Ekstrom the winner from Scheider.
Immer schnellst in qualifying, schnellst in warm-up.
Always quickest in qualifying, quickest in the warm-up, and then the lead from the light to the flag. It was definitely a very good race. I'm up to second in the championship now, and I'll be fighting. But Timo Scheider was still on top of the pile. Indeed, he'd pulled away. Applause from Mercedes-Benz. But Norbert Haug was already thinking forward to the Nürburgring. Round 7 in the Eifel Mountains, where the weather can always be very unpredictable. And it was like this on this DTM weekend. The Nürburgring had showed her fickle and capricious nature as early as qualifying. In fact, it had to be abandoned due to a waterlogged pitch, as the football people say. Audi weren't complaining. Mike Rockenfeller and pole sitter Tom Christensen landed up on the front row of the grid. A few drops of rain sprinkled on the circuit before the start, prompting Audi into a last-minute switch onto rain tyres. It was a mistake. Matthias Ekstrom and Timo Scheider came into the pits for slicks. Christensen and Rockenfeller on wets were no match for the Mercedes pack, who had chosen the slicks. Gary Paffett in the Red Sea class raced up to first from 4th. And what about Paul De Resta from 12th up to second place? There, De Resta, and he passes Paffett. The Scot, of course, in an 08 car, and the Englishman in an 07, and that was on lap 7. Ekstrom and Scheider, they were certainly pushing hard. The leader came in for his first pit stop on lap 21. Shortly before that, Rockenfeller had been stationary for just 3.7 seconds. No such luck for De Resta. Not for the first time this season, the Scot dropped some time in the pits, and the problem cost him the lead. Meanwhile, Ekstrom and Scheider had closed the gap to the 4th place Paffett. The defending champion muscled his way past at the exit of the Mercedes arena. A little while later, Scheider also overtook the 206 DTM champion, but Paffett wasn't giving up the fight that easily. Under braking for the first right turn after the home straight, the Briton moved alongside Scheider. However, the manoeuvre ended up in a shunt up the championship leader's rear. It had been drizzling most of the race, but serious quantities of rain started to fall, and a spin ensued for Susie Stoddard. A few teams elected to call their drivers back into the pits for rain tyres. De Resta was amongst them, and he initially slipped from 2nd to 6th. The decision ultimately allowed the Scot to pass Ekstrom, still on slicks, and then, with the finish line practically in sight, Paffett and Green. the fellow Mercedes men had, like the Swede, remained out on the slicks. Cars were slithering everywhere. Race leader Schneider had also declined to change tyres, but nursed his C-Class safely round the last few turns. Audi Sport Team Abt had fitted wets to Timo Scheider's car 5 laps from the end, a move that paid off a kilometre from home. The 29-year-old passed Ekstrom, lying second in the championship, and took 5th place. But Mr. DTM, the veteran ex-champion Bernd Schneider, was not to be denied now. Keeping his cool in the soaking wet chaos at the ring, he brought home his DTM for his first win of the season. Scheider failed to take 4th place from Paffett by just under 0.2 of a second, and Ralf Schumacher came home in 8th to garner his first points in the DTM. The situation was critical over those last 3 laps. There was a lot of water, and it's no picnic when you're on slicks. You basically can't win either way, especially when you have a healthy lead. But I brought home the bacon, and I've really enjoyed myself. And look at the championship now. Timo Scheider on 44, Jamie Green on 40, Ekstrom on 38 and De Resta on 37. And Mercedes has definitely been the better weather forecasters. And Norbert Haug said, well, it was the kind of race destined for the DTM history books. We won't forget that in a hurry, he said. Bernd Schneider then returning to the top step of the podium. Would it be his last ever victory? On then to Britain, to Brands Hatch, and a certain Lewis Hamilton rather stole the show before the 8th race of the DTM. Mercedes powered, of course, in Formula 1, and the crowds were certainly out to see him. He knows the DTM quite well, of course. He used to compete in the Formula 3 Euro Series, which runs alongside the DTM. And he also did lots of burnouts here in the McLaren at Brands Hatch.
Well, DTM is, I would say, is more of a family environment. There's always, you know, the people can get around the paddock. You can get a lot closer to the race drivers, and it's a more relaxed atmosphere and a lot of close, tight racing. You know, there's a lot of overtaking, so it's a great series. Got good support races, and really, I remember from racing Formula 3, there was always just a great ambience in the air. You know, there was always a great atmosphere.
Well, I think Bernd Schneider and Jamie Green needed a Formula 1 car to get a good qualifying result here. There they are checking it out, but they actually qualified 9th and 5th, respectively. However, by contrast, Paul De Resta made it onto the front row. The only man faster than him, Timo Scheider. Behind Scheider and De Resta, Bruno Spengler and Martin Tomczyk. They were hoping to profit from any error in front of them. But both Scheider and De Resta got away smoothly, with Spengler and Tomczyk lining up in 3rd and 4th places. Overtaking is pretty difficult on the short Brands Hatch track. Indeed, it's the shortest in the DTM calendar. So, pretty early, the race order seemed to be set. Scheider and De Resta were in a league of their own on this particular Sunday. Matthias Ekstrom, meanwhile, was holed up behind Jamie Green. 5th and 6th places. In terms of 3rd place, the odds seemed to be in favour of Bruno Spengler, especially when we had a light drizzle, which made overtaking nearly impossible. However, following his 2nd mandatory stop, he suddenly found himself behind teammate Jamie Green, who had made a stop a lot earlier. The Canadian Spengler was now drawn into a battle for position with Martin Tomczyk. The only chance of making up places was in the pits. However, Scheider and his mechanics were in no mood to make mistakes. As a result, he rejoined well clear of De Resta after his 2nd visit to the pits. The only true battle for position was for 5th, and wonder of wonders, that was resolved by an overtaking manoeuvre out on the track. It didn't look possible or even sensible, but Tomczyk pulled it off against Spengler all the way round the outside at Paddock Bend. Ekstrom turned in a lightning-quick 2nd stint and delayed his 2nd stop until the last possible moment. He was rewarded, passing Jamie Green to claim third place. Scheider kept de Resta at bay throughout the race. He received involuntary assistance from Marcus Winkelhock, who made de Resta's job of lapping him considerably more challenging when the Scot came up behind a gaggle of 2007 Audis. De Resta skillfully dealt with the traffic and resumed his pursuit of Scheider. But there was no getting past the championship leader on this day at Brands Hatch. Scheider duly chalked up his second race win of the season. Matthias Ekstrom claimed third place behind de Resta and ahead of Green and Tomczyk. Overall, Brands Hatch had been a very good weekend for Audi and for Timo Scheider. Well, it may have looked easy, but it certainly wasn't. Timo needed 100% perfect performance, and that's what he delivered. He was permanently under pressure from de Resta, and the fact we also succeeded in bringing Matthias Ekstrom from 7th up to 3rd was a terrific performance from him personally, and obviously also a great strategy. We had good pit stops, and all in all, it was an excellent weekend. Naturally, Audi won't consider anything wrapped up for once and for all until the 2008 championship title is finally in the bag. Mercedes-Benz were not out of the running. The series moved on to Barcelona, where Mercedes took the top 6. Yes, top 6 places last season. And there, the champagne's still spraying at Brands Hatch. After racing here in 06 and 07, the DTM came back to the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona for a third time. Some words between Haugen and Ulrich before the start. Bernd Schneider claimed pole for the first time this season, but the veteran made a less than perfect start. Timo Scheider in the black Audi and Paul de Resta behind him in the Mercedes blasted past the pole sitter at the start. Schneider was even forced to risk all in an effort to overtake Tomczyk and cling on to third place. Green and Ekstrom slotted into the positions behind him. Pushing, shoving and barging was the order of the day. Every driver trying to improve his or her position. Another look then at the start. Bernd Schneider getting serious wheel spin, and he almost shoves Martin Tomczyk off the track. Now on board with Matthias Ekstrom. Schneider's lurch to the side opens the door for Paul de Resta. Scheider and de Resta out in front, followed by the next duo, Schneider and Tomczyk. Behind him, Rockenfeller in the red car and Jamie Green. First opportunity to refuel and take on fresh rubber. Timo Scheider was one of the first to come in along with Green and Spengler. A 3.3 second pit stop for Scheider. Another fantastic stop for the Team App Sportsline team. And problems for Mike Rockenfeller. As we saw earlier in the season, a fuel tank is taken down the pit lane but quickly falls off. A lap later, Paul de Resta and Bernd Schneider come in for their first stops. And the Mercedes pit crew were certainly on their mettle. Very fast indeed. Here they're coming out of the pit lane, and would Timo Scheider stay in the lead? Yes, just! Bernd Schneider there, just managing to stay ahead of Tomczyk. However, Timo Scheider's lead lasted just 3 more laps. Paul de Resta worked out exactly where he wanted to make his move. And there he goes. Straight down the inside. Timo Scheider recognised that on this particular Sunday he could not beat de Resta, so he headed for some safe points. There was precious little action amongst the top 4 after that, but the battle for 5th went right down to the last lap. Jamie Green was attacked and pushed into a spin by Ekstrom, an incident which earned the Swede a time penalty after the race. Leader Paul de Resta duly reeled off the last few yards en route to his second race win of the season. The Scot crossed the line ahead of Timo Scheider and Bernd Schneider in that order. The bumping and boring continued a little further back. Ekstrom, looping home with broken steering, came together with Green, was barged off the track, perhaps an act of revenge for the earlier incident. The stewards handed the British driver a time penalty afterwards and increased Ekstrom's punishment to disqualification. And that had the effect of promoting everyone behind fourth place Martin Tomczyk up 2 places. Ralf Schumacher took 2 more points for a 7th place finish.
It was important, but my main aim for the weekend was to be somewhere in the podium in front of Timo to try and take points out of him. And I'm on the top step, he was on the second step. It could have been a bit better for me, but it's nice to take 2 points down to 7, and 2 races remaining.
Yes, 2 races remaining, and De Resta trying to close in there on Timo Scheider, and Ekstrom in 3rd place. The trophies were handed out, but they were already thinking of the penultimate race, which will be held on the Bugatti circuit at Le Mans. Well, remember at the Nürburgring, Mercedes-Benz had chosen the right tyres in changeable weather. Well, their choice of tyres for De Resta turned out to be very wrong at Le Mans. However, Bernd Schneider, he was on the right rubber. But the rest of the Mercedes drivers, yes, they'd made a mistake. Audi opted for slicks all round, and it turned out to be the right choice. And at the start, their drivers rushed into the lead. Scheider picked off Tom Christensen and Jamie Green in the first few yards. Scheider had started the race from 5th on the grid, 1 place behind De Resta. And although the weather made a mockery of the qualifying positions, there was still everything to play for. A move there by Alexandre Permat in the white and gold Audi. And that was pushing fairness to the limit. But he was, of course, the local hero. He was getting very ambitious on the slicks and was certainly quicker than Paul De Resta. And indeed went past the Scot. Even before the pit lane opened for mandatory stops, De Resta decided to come in and swap the unsuitable wets for some better slicks. The tyre change only lasted 3 seconds. Obviously the best plan was not to come into the pits until it was really necessary. Scheider and Ekstrom were now 38 seconds ahead of De Resta, but the mandatory stops shook the field up again. Bernd Schneider was able to stay on the pace at the start and rejoined after his stop behind the lapped Matthias Lauda and right in front of Timo Scheider, who had recovered his position before the first bend. But then, just watch what happened. There's the black car, on the brakes very hard. And he goes straight across the chicane to the displeasure of the Mercedes-Benz drivers and holds on to the lead. They liked it at Audi, and the steward said it was okay. However, Scheider was through and defended his position until the second round of pit stops. It continued to drizzle, but it was never heavy enough to require wets. But always there was that danger. So, Audi Sport Team apt take another set of slicks. Perhaps it was a mistake. Schneider came in for his second stop just 1 lap later. If it had been his decision, he would have gone on to rain tyres. With De Resta way off the pace, Mercedes were left with practically no other choice but to send the 22-year-old out for the last third of the race on different tyres from Scheider. And then the rain started to fall more heavily, so the gamble had paid off. The weather meant that Scheider was forced to pit again on lap 31. Meanwhile, De Resta drove round Alexandre Permat, the local man, to take second. And one more Audi driver was obliged to surrender his position. It was Timo Scheider, of all people, who gave up 5th place to Bernd Schneider and lost another championship point to De Resta. Mercedes were back in business in the battle for the driver's crown, of course with just the final round remaining. Interestingly, victory to Ekstrom meant that Audi and Mercedes would start the very last race with equal weights on their cars. There, the final position, Ekstrom, De Resta and Primat having a great result, and then Gary Paffett.
It's the strangest race I've ever been involved in. I just wanted it to keep going, and I was fighting so hard, more than I ever have done in a race, and you know, I'm just glad in the end for the team, you know, because they did a great job.
So there were any number of potential permutations ahead of the finale, but one thing was clear: if De Resta could win at Hockenheim, he would be the 2008 DTM champion. So, to the 11th and final race of a cracking 2008 DTM season. And it was to be the last of Bernd Schneider's DTM career. The entire DTM driver lineup visited him in the pit to present him with a farewell gift, a suitably decorated golf cart. This marked you ahead of a warm-up for a race to decide the championship.
Dass alle Fahrer da waren.
I was unbelievably delighted when I saw all the drivers were there, because there was so much at stake. Two were battling for the championship, others looking for contracts, but they still found time to come to my pits and say farewell just before the warm-up, and that was a very nice gesture. I appreciate it. The fans also showed their appreciation for the five-time DTM champion in their own special way. A special thank you for a 20-year motor racing career at the highest level. So this would be Bernd Schneider's last race. Timo Scheider there on the front row of the grid. Paul De Resta. It was going to be a head-to-head Mercedes versus Audi. But as it turned out, the start was a truly decisive moment. Scheider, starting from third behind pole setter Ekstrom, made an absolutely perfect getaway and put his car in front of De Resta halfway down the start-finish line. But it was to get worse for the Scot. Ekstrom left plenty of room for Scheider before slamming the door shut in De Resta's face. De Resta had no chance down the outside and found himself 2 places too far back in terms of the championship. Just look at the replay here. It was certainly tough for De Resta. He liked it at Audi though. Ekstrom's choice of line through the first curve removed any remaining doubts as to his intentions. De Resta was not allowed to pass on the outside, whereas Jamie Green sailed down the inside. Once again, Ekstrom was clearly not driving just for himself, although the fact that De Resta's C-Class touched the rear of the A4 could not really be blamed on the Swede. A few lost aerodynamic parts could not prevent De Resta succeeding at his next attack. Calm now descended for a time on the leading group of 4, but the action was set to hop up further down the field. Spengler, Tomczyk, Schneider and Christensen settled down for a battle for position. Spengler and Tomczyk in particular refused to give ground, whereas Schneider and Christensen recognised there was a lot to lose and very little to win. Spengler ended up barging into Tomczyk, who promptly lost 4 places. A much worse fate lay in store for Matthias Lauda, Marcus Winkelhock, Susie Stoddart and Christian Albers. They all retired after just 2 laps. The cause was a collision, although even after analysing the footage, it was impossible to assign blame with any accuracy. All the cars lost vital parts. And there goes a bonnet. On lap 3, De Resta came up behind Green at the entrance to the Parabolica. Green made way for his fellow Merc driver in the full knowledge that De Resta was battling for the title. Green had clearly abandoned any personal ambitions on this particular day. De Resta closed the gap to Scheider, but never came within range of overtaking. The solitary chance would have been a mistake by the Audi pit crew. There, on board with Paul De Resta. Here is that pit stop. Scheider's A4 came in and out very quickly. Incidentally, the same was true for De Resta. Following Scheider's second stop, it was clear only grave misfortune or driver error stood between him and the Scot was still turning in some quick times, but it wasn't enough. Tomczyk there, let De Resta go. He did not impede him. Scheider ultimately chalked up his third win of the season. By a comfortable distance, the fireworks went off and he had claimed the championship. Before the start of the season, of course, he hadn't even won a DTM race. We made a superb start and then we just focused on all the things we knew we had to do right. The lads have done a sensational job today and I want to say thanks for that. I have to say I need a couple of days to come to terms with my feelings about everything that happened today. De Resta second in the championship and the race. Well, he will have to deal with less positive feelings, although he'd had a very good season indeed. Mercedes took the Constructors' Championship, but that was only a minor consolation. Obviously, the very best thing about all this was Timo's success, and it was in his own hands. He settled it all by himself from the start right to the finish, and I reckon that's the best way to win a title. So for Timo Scheider, the championship, but for Paul De Resta, an outstanding second place, and for Audi and Mercedes, some great DTM battles in 08.